think from downstairs. Oh my God, I thought I sent you his number and his name. I didn't. Oh my God. No, I'm sorry. I totally thought I sent you the name with it. I will do that right now. I will do that. Yeah, he said that they have multiple offers. And they have offers right now with a higher appraisal gap and things like that. And she was already like on the fence about going 5,000 for the appraisal gap. So I have not broached that subject with her because the deadline for their acceptance is not till Wednesday. So I was going to do that later with her. Just she had a lot, going on yesterday with thinking about her offer and coming to terms with the appraisal gap she did put in, which was 5, and but he said that there were people that already had like waived the inspection or done it for informational purposes only and had a higher appraisal gap. But so I'm going to talk to her about that. So whatever else you can say on her behalf. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Oh. Okay. Well, how about we just put that off for now? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Good morning and welcome to today's episode of Plus One. This is, I don't know what week this is, week 8?
10.
Huh? No way.
Because we only have 2 more. 11 and 12.
All right, somewhere between week 8 and week 10 is where we are. But we're here and that's the most important thing. One of the things we talked about objection handling last time. And one of the things I said was to write down the objections that you get most often. And the whole strategy here would be if you know what the objections are going to be and you prepare objection handling strategies for those particular objections, then you will be very prepared if they ever come up. And we even decided that we felt like if the more prepared we are, the less likely they are to ever even come up. So if you're super prepared and a Jedi Knight of objection handling, the good news is you really don't have to handle them that often because you just have such confidence, you exude confidence, and you just don't hear them that often. So I made a list of 10 that I think come up a lot that you should be ready for. The first one is we want to think it over. So you might want to write these down. We want to think it over. So that is the oldest objection in the book. That comes whether you're selling sneakers or whether you're selling houses or whatever cars, whatever it might be. We want to think it over. The second one I wrote down is we want to talk to other agents. If somebody has Googled how to hire a real estate agent, it probably says interview 3 or something like that. So people think that they want to talk to other agents. So that is an objection we got to be ready for. This is one when you're talking about showing buyers. Well, we don't think we've seen enough houses, or we want to look at more houses. That's one that comes up very frequently. How does that work in this market if you pause and you want to go and see more houses? First off, there are not a whole lot more houses to see. And secondly, if you snooze, you
Lose.
lose in this situation. So, the fourth one I wrote down is we've never heard of you. Could be we never heard of your company. We've never heard of you. The fifth one is you're too new. You don't have enough experience. Something along those lines. So that's 5. Number 6 is we want to try selling it ourselves. We want to go for sale by owner. You still hear that out there a lot today. Number 7 is we want you to cut your commission. That's the realtor's biggest nightmare. We want you to cut your commission. We want to get into your pocket. All right, number 8, another one on the listing side. We want to start high so that we can leave enough room for negotiation, a little wiggle room in there. So let's set the price real high because we can always come down. It's hard to go up. That's what they like to say. Next one, number 9, is we have a friend in the business. We want to talk to Bob. We have a friend in the business. And the other one is, the last one I wrote down is the other agents said they could get us more money. So you go to a listing and they say, well, we talked to Alice and she said that the house was going to be worth 400. You say it's worth 350. So there's 10 good ones. Do you think you'd ever see those in reality? I think these are not the only ones, but there's a list of 10. Now, if you looked through your little workbook, we have a lot of these in the handling objection scripts. I think there's 20, maybe I can't remember how many it is, but there's a number of objections that are handled and written out in the workbook. So if you don't have the workbook, get the workbook and you can start with that. So my advice is with these 10, anything else you come up with, if you write down 3 or 4 objection handling phrases, strategies, dialogues, whatever you want to call it, and you rehearse these, you're going to be a heck of a lot better off than if you just stumble into it cold, right? So this is like the intelligence report of what you're going to get in the real world. So you can choose whether you're going to study that and be ready for it, or you can just decide if you're going to wing it. All right. Let's see what else we got here. So we also wanted you to make 15 center of influence or database phone calls, 15 notes, and 5 pop buys. So that's sort of the name of the game. Remember, if you're not doing anything, the results probably aren't going to happen. If this is a contact sport, we just had the championship games in football last night. Very much a contact sport is football, and so is real estate. If you're not making contacts, you're not going to make it happen. So, all right, now we're moving on to talking about sellers. So if there's anything that certainly in today's world, if you can become good at the listing presentation, you can become good at working with sellers, you're going to receive a lot of commission checks, because in today's world, if you can take a listing and you can price it close to right, it's going to sell and you're going to get paid. And I think that's why a lot of us are getting into the business, right, Ron? I mean, if you some people love houses, some people love people, some people, I don't know what they love, but most everybody loves money when it comes down to it. And the beautiful thing about being in real estate is you can love people and you can love houses and you can get paid for that if you do a good job. So there we go. So how then do we work well with the sellers? So the first thing you got to do is you got to sort of get a scouting report. You got to get an intelligence report about who you're dealing with and what they're talking about. So if you find somebody that's thinking about selling, you get a lead, whether it be a referral or however the heck you meet them. The best thing to do is use some pre-qualification questions. You can call it a script, you can call it a dialogue, whatever you want, but the pre-qualification sort of questions so that you know what their goals are and what they're doing and what their hot buttons are, okay? So here, and you can see in your workbook what we have. So you want to start out by saying, hey, before I come out, there are a few questions I need to ask you to get a better idea of your plans. Would that be okay? So that's a pretty good lead-in kind of dialogue there. Some people say, hey, before I come out, there are a couple questions I want to ask you just so that we can make our time much more efficient when we're together on Tuesday night. So you can say it however you want to say it, but you have a lead-in phrase, and then you get to the questions. So if you don't know where you're moving, you'd have to phrase this a little bit differently. But if they had said something about, hey, we're moving to Florida, you'd say, so you said you're moving to Florida, right? And then they're going to say yes, no, whatever it is. And then you want to affirm that. Great, so moving to Florida, that's fantastic. Now, why are you moving to Florida? Now, if they told you that when the first response, they say, hey, we're moving to Florida because it's a job transfer. Well, then you don't ask, so why are you moving there? You have to use your brain. That's one of the things we didn't tell you about it when we hired you, but we do require you to use your brain and turn that on every once in a while. So if they haven't told you, you say, so why are you moving there? Shut up and listen. Well, it's a job transfer, or, my parents are sick and we need to move closer to them. Or we've always said that the kids, when they get out of high school, we're going to move somewhere, whatever it is, then great. So, okay. So your kids are, you've had more children, you're burst at the seams, you want to get in a better school district. Good for you. How soon do you want to be there? How soon do you have to be there is the next question. Right. Again, we're trying to figure out what their motivation is. How soon do you have to be there? And then, sometimes people want to guard their motivation. We talked about that in this class before. So you have to make sure they're telling you the truth. Well, we don't really have to sell. Okay, well, that's just sort of like people say that to salespeople, like, wow, I don't have to buy a new car. Okay, well, so you Ubered here, you're just going to Uber the rest of your life. Your car, you said your car caught on fire on the side of the highway. So like this, we don't have to sell. Well, nobody really has to sell, but in most cases, they really need to sell. So you want to try to find that out. So how soon do you have to be there? Then this next phrase is sort of a sneaky way to just tell them how powerful and confident you are. So if I sell your home in the next 30 days, would that pose a problem for you? Now, if they said we're not going to sell in the next 6 months, then you don't say that, right? But if they're saying, well, we need to, we want to get on the market, pretty soon and get it done, then you can slide the scale. If 45 days makes better sense, or if 7 days makes better sense, say whatever it is. But the whole idea of this thing is, hey, so when I sell your home in the next 30 days, is that going to cause any problems for you? See, that's sort of like, I know I'm good, and I want you to know that I'm good. Okay. And then you could say, well, and I like to sort of shake my head like this, well, what would happen if your home didn't sell? Because that's going to flush out a lot of motivation. All right. That'll really, because people might say, whoa, that can't happen. We've got to be in Minneapolis by, March 15th, whatever it is. So what would happen if your house didn't sell? And then listen to that. All right. So do you plan on interviewing more than one agent for the job of selling your home? A lot of people don't like to ask that. You're not putting ideas in their head. If they're going to interview more than one, they're going to interview more than one. You just need to know.
Right.
Okay. One thing, a side note, you don't want to talk any trash about any other agent. That's just not professional, right? So if they say, hey, yeah, we're going to interview Sally and we're going to interview Bob, and then you don't say, God, Sally and Bob, they suck. You don't ever say that, right? But you want to know. It's a good idea to maybe know who the competition is, and a good idea to know that they're interviewing more than one agent. Because they're saying, if they just tell you, no, Shannon, we're just going to interview you. We know you, we love you, we're listing with you. That's good information to know. I still say you got to make sure you don't screw it up, but that's a good thing to know. And if they say we're going to interview, we're talking to Bob and we're talking to Sally, then that's good information to know as well.
So do you ask specific, so like if you said, are you going to interview other agents? And they said, yes, do you say, who are you going to interview?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'd like to know. Sometimes they don't know. Like, and again, here's the kind of information you get there. Oh gosh, it's, I can't really remember their name. I think it's Donald from the company that has the blue sign. That tells you a little bit, at least there's no relationship there. One of the things that I want to know is if they say, oh yeah, well, I was in a car crash and Bill pulled me out of the fire, saved my life, saved my dog, everything. And I've been totally devoted to Bill for my whole life. He sold 16 houses for us. Then you're sort of going on a suicide mission, and again, it could be somewhere in between there, but you want to try to get some information, some intelligence about who you're competing with.
What if they ask you, like, I don't know, should we interview? Like if you ask them that, like, and they say, well,
Sure. Well, obviously, if you want to hire the best, then this is all you're gonna need to do. If you want to, just sort of kick the tires, and it's up to you.
Yeah.
But I would say, why don't we have our meeting? And if you feel like I can get the job done, then we can work together. And if you feel like maybe you want to talk to somebody after that, then that might not be a bad idea. All right. So the next question, number 7, when I see you, how much do you want to list your home for realistically? And a lot of times they'll say, well, that's why we're bringing you out. And then that's great. So you say, that's the answer you hope that they say. But if they say, we want to list it for 700, then what does that tell you?
They're not realistic.
Well, I don't know what that's what they're thinking.
Well,
So if you think it's 600, then you're going to be better be ready for some objection handling on price. You better make sure you have your comps really dialed in. If you think it's 800, then this should be you're not going to have to fight them on the price, right?
you're gonna be a hero.
Yeah, you're going to look like a hero, right? So if they say, you say realistically, that's important too. So how much do you want to list your home for realistically? If people say, oh, we've always thought we wanted to get 800, but we know it's really only worth 700, something like that. Or if they say, well, that's why we're bringing you out. We want to know what you think. Then you say, of course, as a professional real estate agent, I study homes and prices every day. Therefore, I assume you'll list with me at the price that will, and I don't like allow, I like cause. So scratch out the word allow. I assume you'll list with me at the price that will cause your home to sell, correct? All right.
What's your thinking behind those 2 words? Like why one versus the other?
I just like cause is more of an action thing, like we're going to do it and it's going to cause this reaction versus allow, which is sort of softer.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, whatever works for you.
Okay.
And then so the next one, the price. So what's the price you just absolutely won't go below? Or what's the price that you really need? How much do you owe on the property? That's pretty easy. Then here's one, I don't always say this, but will you help finance the home for the buyer? Are you interested in holding and doing any kind of owner financing, or do you want to take all your cash out? Sometimes, I don't know, that maybe is a little bit old school. You don't see that very often in today's world. If that's appropriate, okay, but if not, then that'd be one that you could probably knock out. So number 12, have you ever thought about selling it yourself? And so when you ask questions, you can sort of help the result by your body language. So have you ever thought about selling it yourself? Make a face like that. Yuck.
Mhm.
Okay, versus, have you ever thought about selling it yourself? See the difference there? Okay, so smiling and nodding what will help elicit a certain response, and then sort of like, have you ever thought about selling it yourself? That tends to, bring out a different response. But if they have, then you want to know that too, because then we need to be ready on some objection handlers. What would be a good technique to use if they say we are thinking about selling it ourselves?
Do you have lots of time to meet buyers at a drop of?
What was the technique that we talked about last week? This would really make me feel good if anybody would remember this.
I understand, and the empathize.
Well, you can, but there's a specific technique that we gave an example with. Has there ever been a time?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Has there been a time? Yeah. Remember we went and got the gas grill and put it together, and I cut myself, had to go to the hospital. And we had to order, pizza because the grill didn't work the way I put it together, and party was bad. My wife left me. Anyway, and then how do you close that one? How do you close? What's the close? What's that?
Don't let that happen to you.
No.
That worked out.
One of the coolest things about being a teacher is when you put your heart and soul into it, and everybody's like, we don't remember shit. There he is, all the way from Australia. Can you see how that time is just like this time? You link it together. There you go. Okay. So will you quickly describe number 13? Will you quickly describe your home for me? Now we need to know a little bit about the house. That's important too. This is really not an objection thing, but also lets you know what they think the hot buttons are about their house. Oh yeah, our house, yeah, it's great. The main thing when you come over here, you want to look at, we have gold plated toilet seats and they cost us a fortune. We need to get that out. We need to get that money out of here because, even the handles, 24 karat gold on the toilet. It's unbelievable. The paint on the wall, it's Laura Ashley paint. It looks like regular paint, but it's Laura Ashley paint. It costs 10 times as much. It looks exactly the same as regular, but we need people to understand that. Okay. So you never know what their hot buttons are, but and they're going to paint the picture of the house for you so that you know what you're walking into. All right. So how would you rate your home? Let's say on a scale of 1 being the worst and 10 being the best in the neighborhood. How do you rate it? Just see what they say. And if they say it's a 10, well, then that's great. Don't ask the next question. But most people aren't going to give themselves a 10. And then when they say it's it's an 8, 8.5, 9, something like that. So that's great. What would make it a 10? Or why do you ask that? Because that's gonna. What's that?
You want to know what's wrong with it?
Yeah, they're going to tell you what they know is wrong with it, and you just write all this stuff down. Okay. I like to add sometimes here. So, are there any projects that you guys think you need to finish up before you get the house on the market? Okay. So just and you can write that information down too. All right. So, and that's number 17. Is there anything you're planning to do to the home before I start showing it to my buyers? Okay. Again, that's assumptive language. See, versus is there anything else? Is there anything you're planning on doing to the home before I start showing it to my buyers? Very assumptive. All right. When did you want me to actually start bringing buyers through the house? All right. Number 18. So some people do this on 19 is about the pre-listing packet. I like pre-listing packets. I try to use them when I can, if there's enough time. I used to hand deliver it, and I still do if there's plenty of time, but a lot of times it's the listing appointment. You set the appointment, you're going the next day or the day after, and there's not enough time. So you can send it electronically. All right. So I'll be sending over a package of information. Will you take some time to glance at that for me before we get together? All right. So what's in the pre-listing pack? Well, I send over some comps if I'm pretty sure about the house. So if I really don't know anything about the house and I have no idea about the value, I don't send comps because I don't want them to get the wrong idea. Because if they think, and again, you've asked them some of this stuff, but if I don't know, if they haven't told me what they think it's worth and I can't really find any great comps, I'm going to go over and see the house first before I send them anything because I don't want them to get the wrong idea. And I don't want to, get them all excited about a price and I get there and I'm wrong. But in many cases, you'll be able to get a pretty good idea for it. So send some comps. I don't tell them what the price is going, my recommended price is going to be in the pre-listing packet, but I send a few comps. I send some market statistics. I send some references for me. I send a little bit about staging. I send a little bit about how buyers find how buyers find the homes that they buy. Other stuff like that can be in the packet, and you can send it on. All right. Do you have any questions before I arrive? Well, so if they say, well, yeah, what's your commission? We only want to do a 30-day listing agreement, whatever else. Those are all things that you say, hey, those are great. We'll make sure, I'm going to write those down because we'll make sure we talk about those as soon as we get together. Best not to handle objections over the phone if you can help it. We talked about that last week. So here's a good one, 21. Put a circle around 21. I've only spoken to you. Are there other decision makers that I need to speak with before I arrive? And write this in. And are they going to be there when we get together on Tuesday at 6 o'clock? Why is that important?
Sort of an objection saying you need to talk to so-and-so.
That's right. And it saves time because if you're not talking to everybody who's important in the decision-making process, they can't make a decision. So if somebody is away, you can use electronic means. You can Zoom call, FaceTime, whatever you might want to do. But it's best to have whoever's making the decision right there with you. Okay. All right. Yeah. So the next question, will they all be there when I arrive? So, and here's sort of a close. So if what I say makes sense and you feel comfortable and confident, smiling and nodding, that I can sell your home? Are you planning to list your home with me when I come out on Tuesday at 4? And they say like, sure, or they might say, well, it just depends on what you say. And they're like, oh no, we really don't plan on listing our home with you. We're going to list with Fred. And so based on what you hear, so I mean, I've actually had people say like, well, no, we're listing our home with Bill. Well, so let me just ask you. I mean, I want to help you, but if you're listing your home with Bill, my job is to list and sell real estate. If you're not planning on listing with me, you think it really makes a lot of sense for us to get together, because you don't want to go if you got no chance in hell to do it. You don't want to go there. That's rare that happens, but not a bad question to ask. So just so you know, our meeting should last for whatever time it is, 20 and 40 minutes, 30 and an hour, whatever your anticipated listing time. Let them know that. All right. Here's a question that I wrote down at the bottom that you could blend in here. That's a good one as well. Are there any homes in the neighborhood that have sold recently that you want me to make sure that I include in my research? Because one of the things that really makes you look dumb and incompetent is if you're there and you're showing them comps and they're like, well, what about the house next door? And you're like, well, I don't have that. And sometimes the house next door sold 7 years ago and they thought it was last week. But if you be prepared, if they say, yeah, well, 101 Elm Street and 104 Elm Street, that we're hanging our hat on those. And it turns out that those are totally different kind of houses, or maybe it's just something that you didn't see. But you're going to want to, if they're all about it, then you need to be all about it. And if there's something wrong with those comps, then you just sort of let them down easy and say, well, Bill, that one, that house is 6,500 square feet with a 19-car garage. Your house is 900 square feet. Could impact the value a little bit. Okay. All right. So the only thing I'm going to need from you when I get there will be a copy of survey or whatever else, and then a spare key for when we're ready to show the home. Okay. So again, we're just planning on, we want them to be thinking like, hey, it's just going to happen. Here's the key, everything else. So look forward to seeing you on Tuesday at 4. Won't that be great? Yes. Okay. Then you're there. All right. So let's talk about, before we actually go into the listing presentation, let's just talk about some things that are really important elements of the listing and the listing presentation when you actually are going to do it. All right. So number one, and these aren't in any particular order, but this one probably should be first, is punctuality. All right. Punctuality. That's a really big word. Realtors don't necessarily know what this means, because if there's ever a class of people that don't understand punctuality, it would be real estate agents. Real estate agents are just late all the time. And how do you feel when somebody's late on you?
Insulted.
I mean, are you ever like, hell yes, Shannon was 15 minutes late. Awesome. Well, if you're late, then that works, right? But I mean, if you're sitting in your house waiting for somebody to come, because that usually is the way it works, they're late. What does it say about you? It says you don't care about me. And if you're going to be late on this, I mean, it's a pretty big gig, right? I mean, think about this, like this listing, the worst listing in Richmond, you're going to get paid thousands of dollars to sell, right? And some good ones, you're going to get paid. I mean, what else can you do and get like $25,000 for, other than like a major drug deal, right? All right. I mean, there really is not a whole lot you can do to get paid the kind of income that we receive. And if somebody was going to pay you, like if I'm going to pay Ryan $20,000 to do a presentation to my group, right? Friends of Dean, where the speaker's Ryan. You think he's going to be late for that?
Better not be.
I mean, it's just impossible. You wouldn't consider that, but real estate agents all the time, late. How about professional appearance? You think if Ryan was coming to talk to Friends of Dean, would he maybe like try to dress professionally? I think he would. Would he get a good night's sleep the night before? Yeah, all the things that you know to do, you would do. He'd certainly be prepared. So that was number 2, professional appearance. Call and confirm the appointment. That's a good one, because you don't know who you're really dealing with. A lot of cases, maybe they forgot. Maybe they've hired somebody else whatever else, but call and confirm the appointment. That shows that you're a professional. So if it's early in the morning, then confirm it the night before, the afternoon before. If it's later in the day, call in the morning and confirm the appointment. Let's see here. So I wrote build rapport, try to bond some with the client, and then realize personality types. Are there some personality types where bonding and building rapport is less important? Yes. Okay. Particularly analytical people, and your driver type personality may not want to bond as much, but everybody appreciates people being nice to them. If somebody is amiable or expressive, then you may want to spend a little bit more time, getting to know them. It can be more about the relationship than it might be with other people. So you don't want to overdo it, but you need to try to feel out who you're dealing with and then build rapport. If they're trying to build rapport with you, then you want to be building rapport with them. Take a tour of the house. That's an important element of the listing presentation. I like to do that at the beginning. And while you're going through the house, you're trying to pick up on things that could be objections down the line. You're trying to absorb what's going on in the house so that you can put an appropriate value on the house, as well as you're just trying to listen to what's important to them and trying to figure out what kind of personality type that they have and maybe do a little bit more bond. Okay. You want to have organized presentation materials. So if your presentation, you just got crap all over the place and you don't really look organized, or you have nothing, then that doesn't look that professional. Some people, want to bring in a whole bunch of pre-printed fancy stuff, and that's fine. I mean, everybody can have their own style, right? Some people want to use an iPad or a laptop or whatever it might be, and that's fine too. But whatever you're using, try to make sure that you're not fumbling through it the whole time and that you have it fairly organized. You need to have be able to explain and understand and talk about the current market conditions. People know that the market is good for the most part. They've heard that, but you can use some specifics and talk about how many homes have sold in their neighborhood, how many homes are available on the market in the Richmond MLS. Have some statistics to make it look like you really know what you're talking about and explain the current market conditions. Number 8, I wrote down is have a clear explanation of the value based on a comparative market analysis. So you need to have some materials that it's going to help them understand exactly the value of their house. Is it the value? Are you putting a value on their house? No, the market is determining the value and you're showing them that. So it's not Shannon's value, it's the market value. You don't want to be, hey, and the Harry O'Kelly Aussie kangaroo price is, because if the price is assigned and attached to you, what happens if it doesn't sell?
It's your fault.
It's your fault. Okay, is it your fault? It could be your fault. I mean, you could not be doing your job, but in most cases, what causes houses not to sell?
Overpriced.
Being overpriced. Plain and simple, being overpriced. Okay, so you have to have a market analysis that's going to help them reveal what the price should be. And in a perfect world, you say, hey, here's comp 1, here's comp 2, here's all the benefits and all that kind of stuff. So based on this, what is the price we need to put on your house in order to cause it to sell in this market? And hopefully they can see it plain as day. Now, there are cases where you don't have a lot of great comps and it just doesn't work out that well. All right, so we need then, after this, number 9, we need to have a discussion of our marketing strategy. What are we going to do to get the home sold? Okay. People want to know, are you just going to sit on your butt? What are you going to do? What are the elements of your marketing strategy? All right, another important element of the powerful listing presentation is asking questions. All right, if you're just telling them stuff, remember what we talked about. Selling is not telling. Selling is asking a series of questions that leads the person to a desirable result. Okay, so ask questions. Your presentation needs to be questions based. All right, make them talk and make them participate in the discussion. All right, you have to be a great objection handler because objections usually will come up at the listing table. You have to be able to close. All right, that's 12 things. Then a sort of a bonus one was that pre-listing packet. If you use a pre-listing packet, that can be an important element of a powerful listing presentation. That's not everything, But if you give your presentation, like if you're role playing the presentation, and we could check off that you were punctual, you called to confirm the thing, your professional appearance, you built rapport, you did all these other things. If you could check all those boxes, then more than likely you've come up with a pretty good listing presentation. You could refine it, but if it has all these elements, then you should be in pretty good shape. So what we have is sort of an example of, this is based on the Mike Ferry system, but this is sort of an example of the presentation. And I like this 1 minute presentation. And this is sort of how this is how you lead into the appointment. Now, very rarely is it going to be over after the 1 minute presentation. And even if they say yes to question number 3, it's not necessarily over, but you really know where you stand, and you might want to go ahead and sort of take some action. Because remember, if somebody's like, yes, we want to work with you, what do you want to do then? If somebody's like, yeah, we want to list with you.
Sign the contract.
Yeah, let's get down to business so you don't screw it up, right? Because we know that if Ryan keeps on talking about how great he is, after that, he just rambles on about the wonderment of working with him. Eventually, people are going to be like, this guy's a loser. Maybe we've made a bad decision, right? I'm just kidding. No one would think Ryan's a loser, would they? Would they, internet world? No, but if you don't have anything to gain, if they're going to list with you, that's why you're there. Okay, so get the listing and then talk about the marketing strategy and then talk about whatever else. Okay, if they're ready to sign, let them sign. If they're not, then help them along and answer the questions and finish the presentation until they are ready. Okay, so the 1 minute presentation. So here it is. You got your car is washed. You're 5 minutes early. You got your nice outfit on. Your hair is combed. You got a good attitude. You had a good night's sleep. You've got all your documents. You got everything ready to go. You ring the doorbell, bing bong, and hey, thanks for having me over. I'm excited about getting your home on the market and getting it sold. Do you mind if we take a quick look around the house? And then you look around. Oh, okay, nice. Oh, perfect. Oh, yeah. Look, you went to Hawaii. That's really neat. Hawaii is awesome, and whatever else. You go and you see all the rooms and whatever. Oh, yeah. It looks like maybe you need to replace the carpet here and whatever else. All right, so you sit down and you say, all right, great. Thank you so much for the tour. All right, let's get started. So I wrote down 3 really important questions for you. All right, so Beth Ann, number 1, do you really absolutely have to sell this home?
Yes.
You absolutely have to sell it because you told me you're moving to Florida.
Mhm.
So you don't want to keep up a vacation home here in Chesterfield County, do you?
No.
That wouldn't make a lot of sense.
No.
All right, excellent. So question number 2 is, will you price the home to sell? Yeah, you have to, because if you don't price it to sell, what happens?
It won't sell.
It won't sell, right? And do you want me to handle the sale for you?
Absolutely.
Excellent. So let's do this. Let's go ahead and get the paperwork signed right now. Then we'll talk about market conditions, a little bit of exact pricing and everything else. So let's go ahead and get the paperwork, get that boring stuff out of the way now. Won't that be great?
Mhm.
Okay, very good. So you could just sort of close like that. All right. And the Mike Ferry thing is all we need to do now is simply sign the contract so I can help you get what you want in the time that you want. Won't that be great?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Smile and nod. Smile and nod. So, all right. So let's move on here. So let's just say they're like, well, yeah, we really like you, but we want to hear what you have to say. And, obviously we want to know about where we're going to price this thing and what you're going to do. And then that goes right into the next part. Okay, so obviously, great. So at the end of my presentation, I have 1 of 3 things are going to happen. 1, you're going to list your home with me, and that's going to be great. Or 2, you're going to choose not to list your home with me, and that's fine. Or number 3, I'll decide that we just can't come to terms, and I'm not going to take the listing. And either one of these 3 would be fine. Okay. So that's pretty powerful, right? So most people are coming in like, please, please, please listen with me. I'm desperate. I got to make my car payment. I need this. But you're saying, the first thing that happened is you'll list your home. We could just hit it off like I think we are, and you're going to list your home with me, and that would be great. What? Number 2, we might go through this, and I might decide, it's just best that we don't work together, and I won't take the listing. And number 3, excuse me. That was number 3. Number 2 is, and then number, you might hear what I have to say and you might not want to choose me. That's fine. Or number 3, after we talk and we just might not be able to come to terms on things and I won't be able to take the list. And any one of those is fine. So it just shows confidence. It shows that, you're really here for the right reasons. So the next part is let's quickly take a moment and review the questions I asked you on the phone. Now, what this is all to make sure you're clear on what they're doing, but it also builds a pattern of yeses. Okay, it builds a pattern of agreement. What you want? You want yes, exactly, correct. Okay, can we do it? Yes, sign here. Okay, here's my price. Good, and it just like a rhythm of yes, right? So you said, but then you said you're moving to Florida. Is that right?
Yes.
It's exciting. The sun, the fun, get down there and get her done. All right. So you said you had to be in Florida. I think you said by March 15th. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Wow. So that's coming up pretty quick, right?
Yes.
Awesome. All right. You said you wanted to price your home at 700,000, right?
Yes.
Okay. And you said you owe 600,000. Is that right?
Yes.
All right. And you said you're moving there because you're going to be a supermodel, and that's where you get the best hands.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Makes great sense to me. And you said if your home didn't sell, you'd have to go back to working at McDonald's, and you didn't want to do that, right? Okay, of course not. Of course not. So, and you said you weren't planning on selling yourself, right?
Yes.
Okay. And you wanted all your money out. You didn't want to finance it for the buyer, right?
Right.
Okay. Now, there are really only two issues based on all this stuff. Only two issues we have to look at tonight. One is your motivation to sell the home. And I think we know that, right? Because you have to be in Florida, don't you?
Yes.
Okay. And number two, the second issue is the price we set on your home. And Beth Ann, it's really important. Do you understand? There's really only two factors, really two issues when it comes to selling real estate today. Your motivation and the price. Are we clear on that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Why would I say that? Because we want to eliminate all this other crap. It's not about Zillow and it's not about everything else. If we can focus our discussion on this, we can talk about marketing stuff later. But getting into it, we're going to talk about, the more we focus on your motivation, the better. Because if you got to be in Florida, I'm going to keep that helps you make a decision. And then the price, we want to come up with a market-based price that's going to be the best price we can get for you, but still within reason based on the market. Okay, we're focusing on that. All right. So I prepare what we call a comparative market analysis, a CMA. You've heard of that, haven't you?
Yeah.
All right. So there are two parts to the research. Okay. Part one. Okay, we call this fantasy land, right? That's what like agents, not like me, but like agents, that they hope and sellers just put a price on a house and hope they sell for it, right? Do you want to be there?
Mm-mm.
Probably not. Probably not. The other's called reality. And I just think in talking to you, I think that's probably where you want to spend your time, right? So reality is what top agents like myself list and sell homes for every day. Okay. So what we got to decide tonight is where we want to spend our time, fantasy land or reality. Where do you think you want to spend your time?
Reality.
Reality. All right. So the whole purpose of this market analysis, Beth Ann, is to determine the value of your home in the eyes of a buyer. Okay. Do you know how buyers determine value?
No.
You don't. Okay. A lot of people don't. So buyers determine value by looking at the price of your home based on its features and benefits. Okay. Looking at price, excuse me, this is whoever typed this. So buyers determine the value by looking at homes. Okay. And they look at the features and benefits of homes that are sold and homes that are currently listed for sale. Okay. Does that make sense? So they sort of comparison shop, right? So for an example, let's talk about value, Beth Ann. I see you've got, what kind of car do you drive?
Prius.
A Prius. Okay. Cool car, save the world, Greenpeace, all that kind of stuff. All right. So if you were looking at a Prius and you went to Haley Toyota and they had that Prius for, for what I don't know what a Prius costs, $40,000. All right. And then you go down the street to the next dealership and they had a Prius. Okay. And that Prius has sunroof, has the fancy stereo, has, cooler wheels and whatever cool stuff you get in a Prius, like a flower on the dashboard or something like that. Okay. And that Prius is also $40,000. Okay. Has a lot more stuff.
Mm-hmm.
which one has more value?
Probably the one with more stuff.
Right. More features and benefits for the same price is more value.
Mhm,
Right? Would you think most buyers would feel that way?
mhm.
Right. So now what if you went down the street to another dealership and they had that same one with all of the features and benefits, okay, for 40,000, but then they had the one that just the normal one, and that was at 35. Which one has more value now?
Probably would still take the one with more features and benefits.
Okay, well, you're weird.
Yeah,
No, I'm just kidding. So let's say that one was 30. All right. So you can get the sunroof and you can get the stereo, but that's 40. All right. Or they'll get you the one just like the one you have for 30, which has more value now.
probably 30.
30, because why?
I'm spending less.
Spending less. And if you want the stereo, what can you do?
I can install it.
You can go get whatever stereo you want. What about the sunroof? What if you don't care about the sunroof?
I don't care.
Yeah, who cares about the sunroof, right? So can you see that homes are the same way, and most buyers look at it the exact same way as you, right? For instance, if people have a lot of features and benefits in their home, maybe it's worth more, but to you, what if you don't like the Laura Ashley paint?
No.
Yeah. Okay. So buyers are going to want to buy the house that gives them the most features and benefits, or has the best value. And sometimes it's both, right? But it's all about comparison shopping. So what price do you think we need to set on your house in order to cause it to sell? This would be if we had already looked through that. Maybe you don't know. So here, let's look at these. So comp number 1, 4 bedrooms, just like yours. How many baths does it have? 3. I always like to ask, I'm showing them the thing, I always ask them. I put my finger right on where it says how many bathrooms. How many bathrooms? And you say 3. How many bedrooms? 4. How many square feet? And you're reading it. So I'm making sure you're following along. Everybody understand that? So I'm going through like the MLS sheet or whatever I have prepared. Okay. And then you can see based on some of these pictures, this house is very similar to yours, isn't it? And they might even say, yeah, I went in that house. That house is just like ours. It's the same exact floor plan. The same builder built all these houses. That one just has a little bit bigger deck than our house. Okay. And you can see that they sold that house for whatever the number is, 700. Okay. So you said you'd like to get 800 for your house. Is that right? So if you were a buyer and you could see that the same exact house with a bigger deck sold for 700 and your house is on the market for 800, how would you feel about your house? And do you want buyers to feel that way? So anyway, you sort of get where we're going with all that.
Mhm.
So the first thing you're going to be doing is going through the market analysis. Well, not the first thing, but really when you get into the presentation, the market analysis, I think, is where you want to start and build agreement on the price. So you want to show them how their house compares to whatever data you can get and try to line it up. Now, in this market, is the market appreciating or depreciating or staying the same?
Appreciating?
It's appreciating. It's appreciating. In most cases, it's going up. So it's sort of like the leapfrog effect. So if in a neighborhood in particular, like if this neighborhood has 1,000 homes and somebody sells one for 500, the next one is probably going to sell for at least that price, but probably a little bit more, and then a little bit more, and then a little bit more until the market changes. We don't know when that's going to be. So you can factor in a little bit of appreciation. All right. Also in this market, something that's a little bit unique. Is it a good strategy to price a home competitively? And then if you do that, what might happen if you put a very good price on the house? What might happen when you get a lot of buyers in that house? A bidding war. And usually, not every time, but usually a bidding war is going to mean what to the price?
It's gonna go up.
Yeah, it's going to go up, and sometimes insanely up, right? So if you're a seller, would you be interested in your house having a bidding war on it? In most cases, most sellers would, because they think that that's going to get them the highest price. So is it a good strategy to price the house you know, to price it very competitively, instead of maybe trying to leapfrog. If the last one was 500, rather than going to 525, what if you're at 499? And if you've called that other agent and the other agent said, you know what, we had like tons of people through here. We had 15 offers and it went for whatever else. Would you think it's a good strategy to be pretty close to that price so that you might be able to get the same result? What happens if you listed it? Let's say that house went for five. Let's say if it was listed at 500 and it went for 550. Would it make a lot of sense to list it for 555? Probably not. I mean, I would think if you maybe even wrench it up a little bit, go to 525, then maybe the spread you get 50, maybe you go to 575. I don't know. It's hard to know, but I don't think that, I still think overpricing is dangerous in today's world. If you just go out there and you stick something out on the market that is well above anything that's ever sold, you're going to have a challenge getting it sold for the highest and best price. So that's a little strategy. That's my personal feeling, but you can look at it. You need to be, well, I think we can all agree that the recent sales are going to help you determine the value of the home and help buyers determine the value of the home. You don't want to get too awful far away from that. Now, there are markets where it's depreciating and you have to be like, well, that house took, 90 days to sell and they got this. You need to be in Florida in 30 days. So what do we need to do to the price? We probably need to be more competitive than they were. Now, that's not today's market, but it could be. All right, so to close, what price do you feel we should use to create value in the eyes of the buyer and get someone to decide to buy your home versus the competition? And you hope when you ask that question, they're like, well, it's pretty obvious it needs to be 525. Great. Now that you've seen these prices, I'm going to recommend that same price, 525. Will you list your home with me for that price tonight? Yes. So all we need to do now is simply sign the contract so I can help you get what you want the time you want. Won't that be great? Boom. All right. So then you can see, we're not going to go through this whole thing, but then usually what happens is you're either in agreement on price or you're not. And if you're not, then you have to handle that even more. And here's another way to, here's another objection handling script. Usually people think their house is worth more because of things that they've put into the house. So my house has got fancy stereo speakers and I've got this carpet is super upgraded carpet. This came from, Norway. All right. And then but most people really don't care about all that stuff. In fact, what happens to a lot of carpet as soon as people buy the house? They tear it out because your favorite color is not my favorite color. We don't know. Okay. So that's part of that. All right. Here's some closes. The next thing. So you have to remember, we talked about objection handling. When it's time to close, close. Okay. If you feel like you can close, you can say, hey, so to give your property maximum exposure, I'm going to recommend we get that lockbox, get the sign up right away so we don't miss anybody. How would you feel if somebody's driving down the street today, would love to buy your house and pay top dollar for it, and we didn't have the sign up, they didn't know it was on the market, and they went down the street and bought something else? How would that make you feel? You don't want that to happen, do you? So let's do the right thing. Okay, that's one of those closes. So anyway, several closes right there for the ending of the presentation. On the next page, you can see this, our plan of action for getting your house sold. Now, what you need to do is create your own plan of action, because you may or may not use some of these techniques. You may use all these and you may use some of the, whatever it is, but you want to have your own. So if whatever you do, you got to have it on paper. That's something that would be good to give somebody when you're there. Okay. So this is a little bit weird because it came up on the end of this page and then all on this page, but you want to create your own plan of action. So you need to show people that you are an active agent, that you are doing things. You can even make this into a checklist. I think that can be a good thing. So you can tell the seller, a lot of agents are just going to tell you a bunch of stuff. And, to be honest with you, they may do it, they may not do it. Here's a checklist of things that I'm committing to do for you. And as we do it, I'm going to report into you. I want you to check them off. I want you to hold me accountable to doing the things that I'm promising to you to get your home sold. Won't that be great? I think that would set you apart from most agents. So there you have that. Anything that you think should be on this list that's not on this list? Sensing none, that means my list is perfect. All right. So, any questions about listing presentation? Does it have to be exactly what I showed you? Absolutely not. It can be whatever you want it to be. I think the best thing to do is to have an outline of what you want to have happen. We want to have a nice greeting. We want to tour the house. We want to sit down and talk to the seller about selling the house. We want to make sure we go over the market analysis, all that kind of stuff. We want to close. We want to move, maybe go over the plan of action, close, and move forward. A couple tips here. Where do you want to sit down and talk to the seller? What about sitting on the floor? Is that a good spot? What about sitting on the sofa? What about like if the TV is on and there are kids screaming everywhere?
No.
Sometimes you can't avoid that, but it's best not. So sometimes people will, especially amiable people, will be like, well, come on in here and sit right. This is my chair. I want you to sit here in this nice, comfortable chair. And that's real nice. You just want to say, well, thank you, Mrs. Jones. I really appreciate that. I think it's just going to be best for my presentation if we have a table and I could put some stuff out. So can we go sit at your kitchen table? Oh, that's a really nice kitchen table right there. Look, it's got a rooster right there in the middle of it. So you don't want to be like, no, that's stupid. You want to let them down easy and move, but it never works out real well if you're not at the kitchen table or not at a bar or something where you can have like a business meeting. Okay. Where do you sit at the table?
Facing your phone, facing the stomach.
Yeah, I don't necessarily know that it just make sure you're not in a weird place. I mean, if it's a rectangle table, I think sitting at the head of the table, that sort of shows that you're the leader. It doesn't have to be there. If it's round, then it really doesn't matter. If there's stuff in the middle of the table, I would try to get rid of that so you're not having to peek around like the flowers or whatever else. And then sometimes it is a challenge, like with little kids running all around, but you just have to try to stay as focused as possible on the matter at hand. See what other things. If your listing appointment winds up going on for like let's say over an hour and 15 minutes, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Another situation.
Yeah, I think it does. In most cases, it's probably leaning to being a bad thing. But for the right people, I mean, especially like amiable people, maybe it takes a little bit longer. And if you're getting it, I mean, if they're signing, then you're okay. You just have to be careful that you're just not there. You're just not nervous and continuing to talk to put off the inevitable rejection that you think might be coming. So be careful about that. And when it's over, it's over. I mean, if you don't have anything else to say, then pick it up and get out of there. Is it easier to get the listing at the table when you make the presentation, or is it easier for them to call you back and tell you to do it?
Right, face to face.
Face to face. Because what can happen if you don't take it right then?
Change your mind.
They could,
You start to have doubts.
they could have doubts. They could have somebody else could call and be like, oh no, you need to interview 5 agents and call this company and whatever else. If you're there and you feel like you can get it done, get it done. You don't want to be a jerk. You don't want to be over pushy. Yet they had you there for a reason. So try to get the job and try to close. And a good, one of the things would be like, so okay, I understand you're not ready to go right now. What are some questions left in your mind? And then try to handle those objections and then try to close. But if they're not ready, they're not ready. Okay. All right. So what we're going to do, and we have to sort of figure out how we're going to do this. Next week, we're going to try to have you do some listings, like a listing presentation. Okay. So for those of you that are online or watching somewhere else, we need to try to figure that out. maybe get our managers involved. And shame on me for not being super prepared for this, because we need to, if you never practice a listing presentation, you're never going to get much better at it. And so in this listing presentation, you're going to practice not only your listing presentation, but you're going to get some objection handling practice as well. So I'm going to assign a address, sort of a fictitious, it'll be a real address, but we're really not listing the property. We're just going to use that to do our market analysis. So there will be some comps. It's not going to be like a super complex thing. So there will be some comps. You're going to research the comps, come to class with whatever materials that you have, that you would have normally, and you're going to be ready to give a listing presentation. So I'd like to say that everyone will give their presentation. The problem is we won't have enough time for everyone, but we'll actually have some live ones going on here next week, at least 2 that we'll Zoom you into, and then talk a little bit about those. We'll let those happen, and then we will critique them. And then for those of you that are watching here, do we have a way to get these people's names, like everybody who's here? And we'll try to get you paired up with each other or with a manager to where you can role play. At least everyone gives their listing presentation to one other person and get some feedback from them. Does that sound fair? Okay, I think it's a great idea. All right. So for you guys that are here, now here's what always happens with this is then nobody shows up. Like, oh, well, yeah, I had a doctor's appointment. So if you really want to get better and you really want to, you want to make it, if you want to be successful in the business, this is a huge thing. Is it potentially embarrassing? Could it make you nervous? Sure. Would you rather fail here than at a real live kitchen table where there's $20,000 on the line?
Yeah.
I would think this would be a safer place to fail. And who says you're going to fail? You're not going to fail. We're just going to help you. So I've never seen somebody give one that it all was bad. You know, everybody's going to have some great parts of it, and everybody's going to need a little bit of help. I mean, if I give my listing presentation here, you're going to say, hey, this was good, but maybe I need some help too. So we all need some help. Don't be afraid of that and just be ready to do it. So that's the main homework situation. I will send it out by the end of the day with Stephanie's prodding. I will send out the address of this house. We're all going to be listing the same house, and I will send out the motivation and whatever else. So somebody's going to be the seller and somebody's going to be the agent. And the seller, we want to give some objections. We don't want to be, we want the listing agent to win at the end every time. But we do want to give some objections. We don't just want to lay down and let them have the list. We're going to give a few objections along the way. Sound fair? Okay. And we still need to continue with our contacts, 15 COI contacts, 15 handwritten notes, 5 pop buys along the way. All right, that will probably do it. It's 11 o'clock, right on the nose. So hopefully you've learned a little bit. If you have questions about your listing presentation, you guys can reach out to me at 244-1022. That's area code 804-244-1022. Call now, don't delay. And if you guys have questions, we can talk about them after class. Thanks for being here.